All right, hello everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. If you haven't joined one of our Snacks and Skills before, we're excited to have you here today. This is our 4th Excel session, and we're going to review the first 3 that we went through. So meet your teacher. We have Drew Charles. He is one of our finance managers. He's actually taught many of these before. He's really great at it. We're really happy to have him here today. So really pay attention to what he's doing. He knows the stuff, and then feel free, make sure you're writing down your questions. He's happy to answer them, especially this session. We're hoping that we get a lot more questions this time. So what are we going to learn? It's the review of the first 3 sessions, and it's really important just because a lot of this information, it might be new to you, it might not be, but either way, it can be overwhelming to learn new things and difficult using it on your own. So we really want to help teach efficiencies, best practice. So in the single data set, he's going to work through it and incorporate all the pieces that he taught in the first 3 sessions. As far as your audio and video, just make sure that you are in full screen mode and select speaker mode. That way you get the best visual there. PC settings for the whiteboard, if it looks dark, brighten your screen a little bit. And then if you are on site in Irving, make sure that you are in a Zoom room. So we're in lab today if you want to join us. Otherwise, we do have Calico and Rabbit reserved as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started.
All right. Hopefully everyone can see the screen and not my screen, but actually see the board. What we have here is just a quick data set that we're going to be working off of throughout the class today. One of the things we talked about in the first class was a bunch of different files about differences between text files, CBS files, Excel files, the XLS files, which is the 2016 version versus the 2003 Excel version. So if you have files that, just to recap that, if you have files that are in the older version of Excel, if you save them in the newer version of Excel, you will not lose any functionality of your data. It just brings it over so that other people can actually use it. If there's a computer set that cannot read the newer version of Excel, then that's why you have to save it in the older version. And I think everybody here should be in the 2013 version of Excel. So we shouldn't have that issue, but in the drop down, that's why it's there. In the first class, we also talked about manipulation of data, and that's one thing we didn't really cover in the first class, so I want to go through that real quick. Sometimes when we manipulate data, or sometimes when we actually get data sets, we have to manipulate the way it's actually looking up, the way it's actually given to us. The reason for that is when we do a VLOOKUP or an HLOOKUP or an index match, we need a unique data set. But a lot of times we have multiple dogs, or we have maybe a store number that's, say, 1653, but we have dog, cat, bird, whatever. We have a bunch of different things at 1653. So we had to do a lookup off 1653. It wouldn't work because it only stopped at the first one. Okay. So how do we get around that? There's a couple different ways. We can use the sum formulas. We can use the SUMIF formula. We can use what I like to call making your data a unique data set using the concatenate formula or the ampersand sign. So that's the first thing we're going to do, just to show that piece. So if I wanted to make this a unique data set, the first thing I would do was take my 4 left column here and probably insert a column, and I'm going to just simulate that over here. So what we would do, let's just call this our concatenate cell here, okay? We got a new row of data. And the formula that we would use inside this cell, we would say, I'm going to do it over here so it's real big. We would do equals A2, and then use the ampersand sign, B2. Now what that's going to do is the answer that's going to come out is going to be 1653, no space at all, dog. Because what it did was it took 1653 from A2 and then pushed it together with B2, basically combining those two cells to give us this weird looking word here, right? Now, we can do this and keep adding all of them together if we wanted to. And what that would do is, now that we have this unique code, that's the best way to say it, a unique code, it would be attached to the information of 7,000. So if I had to do a VLOOKUP of 1653 dog, I can make my VLOOKUP look for 1653 dog in this unique data set and return the actual cells. So that's one way of manipulating the data. And you can do this in different ways to combine a data set. The other way is using a concatenate formula, and it's exactly how it's spelled. It's concatenate. Okay, so that starts the formula, and then you would do the same thing. You would put A2, then you'd put a comma, and then B2, and it would give you the same exact information. Now, why would you use this long word concatenate instead of just putting an ampersand sign? Well, from a typing standpoint, it's easier to put a comma than it is to put an ampersand. Because I got to hit shift in order to put my ampersand. And I'm putting the comma, I don't have to. So yeah, it took me a little bit longer to write the word concatenate. But if I'm combining a long group of things, it's a lot easier to use a comma. So just a little efficiency thing on there. Do we have any questions that came in?
Nope.
Not yet. Perfect. All right. So that's just some, that's one thing we talked about with manipulating data. The other thing we talked about manipulating data, I think this is going to help a few folks, is if we have a name list, and it's last name first, comma, first name. Okay? So if I have a name list in a column that says Charles Andrew, but I wanted to say Andrew Charles, how do I do it? How do I take this thing and flip it around? What we use is a function inside of Excel called text to column. And I'll show you in just a second as I get back to my computer. But in the text to column, what it does is it goes through and it looks through a single column of data. It will not look at rows, it will only look at columns. So if you have a single column of data, you can go through the text to column functions, and it'll walk you through on how to do it, and we'll go through in just a second. But you can separate it by this column. So what happens is the text to column will take everything up to the comma and put it in one column. And then everything after that comma, it will put it in a new column. So therefore now you have Charles and Andrew in two different columns. But Drew, I want to put it back to say Andrew Charles. So how do I do that? Well, we just talked about the concatenate formula in the ampersand, right? So that's what we'll do. We'll say this time, instead of we'll go equals, now just do it, say, let's just call this column A, this is column B, and this is row 1. Okay? Now we will say B1, which is Andrew, and then the ampersand sign. And then how do I put a space in between them? To put a space in there, you do a quote, you do a double quotations, space, close quotations. Okay? That puts a space. It works in the ampersand way or the concatenate way. Works both ways. Ampersand, A1. Now, the outcome of that now will show Andrew space Charles in whatever cell you told it to put. So that way, I've just manipulated this list and it's separated by the comma and then turn it to exactly what I want. And now I can just delete that if I want. So now this is what I really want. So that's another way you can manipulate the data to make it look at what you want it to look versus something else. Okay. I guess another thing we want to talk about when manipulating data is, anybody ever have a long cell that you have to actually wrap the text in order to see everything that's in that cell, right? And then sometimes you have to put a bunch of spaces in between the words to make it fall to the next line. So you have your cell actually says actual June, but the space you have it in, you want it to say actual then June underneath it, but all in the same cell. How do you do that without manipulating and changing the cell, right? In this ampersand formula here that we have here in the concatenate, what you do is, once you get to the next set of letters that you want at the bottom, like actual and June, you actually hold Control. You actually hit Alt on your keyboard and enter. What that does is it takes everything that's after where you did that function, Alt plus enter, and just moves it right down. So as long as you have the wrap text on, no matter how small or big your cell is, it will put it underneath. And you can see that in your box. So let's go to the computer and I'll show you a little bit of manipulating that data that way. Okay. Let me make this a little bigger. So we have Charles, comma. All right. The thing we talked about, text to column here. And this, I know this is not a real way of doing it, but I just want to show you what would happen if you have multiple commas in a thing. So we have one row of data. I'm going to select the column that I have, and I'm going to go to Data, Text to Column, and it'll bring up this box. Now in this box, it has two different options. One is delimited, which means it's separated by either a comma, semicolon, space, a number of different things, or fixed width. Fixed width says if everything was the same, right? I have 4 characters. I can actually click in between and it'll separate it. Or I can move it wherever I want in the text to column with separated on that line. But I don't want that. I want it to do it by the comma. So I'm going to delimit it, hit next. So I can have it separated by tabs, semicolons, commas, space, or whatever character that's in between there. So if there was a dash in between, you can actually type the dash into this box and it'll separate it by the dash. We have commas, so we're just going to select the commas. And it'll actually give you a little preview of what it's going to look like. So hit next and finish here. And you see it took Charles, took the comma away, put Andrew here. And you remember I had this second column here, this comma here, it separated the Wayne as well. Okay? So that way you have all 3 separated. The trick with this though is if I look at Andrew, there's still a space in between the beginning of Andrew, right? So to get rid of that, we can use a trim formula or you just back out the space. But the easiest way is just to highlight the cells, hit Control H, which is a shortcut for the find replace. And you just actually type a space in the find and leave the replace with blank and hit replace all. Now, all spaces are gone. Okay, little tips and tricks snuck in there. All right, so now we need to get it back to the way we had it.
Hey, Drew, do you want to comment maybe on the, when you do that text to column, some of the problems could be is when you set up that special character, like if you put in a semicolon or something like that, and you don't turn it off, when you copy stuff into that sheet and it has a semicolon, it'll automatically put that to text to column. So it's a good rule of thumb to go back there and uncheck it once you're done with it.
Thanks, Matt. That's actually a great point. When you do that, like Matt said, if you have a text to column, sometimes it will automatically do that. If you have something with semicolons, if you have to copy and paste it into there, sometimes it might eliminate that. So thanks for that, Matt. Appreciate it. In the concatenate formula, or the combining of two using the ampersand, we're going to say equals F6, which is Andrew. Put the ampersand. See, I got to hit Shift and 7 just to get that. But if I was to type concatenate, and if you don't know how to spell concatenate right away, it's okay, because Excel is going to give it to, going to tell you how to. Right? You said a little blue box that popped up. Excel will tell you how to type it. So concatenate here, and then Andrew with F6, comma, and we want a space in between Andrew and Charles, so we're going to use quotations, space, quotation, comma. And as you see, every time I hit comma, it actually bolds out the next thing that I'm typing. So this is the text section 3. That's why it says text 3. If I hit comma again, it's text 4, text 5, text 6, so on and so forth. We're in text 3. So we're going to Andrew Charles, then we're going to close parentheses, and now I have Andrew Charles in my file. And I can do whatever I need to off of that. Okay? So that's manipulating data, and now we're just going to move on to something else. Do we have any questions on the line right now? No questions. That making it different.
One of the kind of a cool one for concatenate that they've just done is the concat. It's kind of a cool little feature.
So what he's talking about here is just the regular concat here, instead of having full concatenate.
Yeah, because I don't know if you've used that, Drew, but what's kind of cool about it is you can just highlight, you can just go like that, and then it'll concatenate all of those together.
Right. So what he talked about is if you have a string of data in either in a row or a column, and you were to just type in concat, open parentheses, and just highlight that string and close parentheses, it will combine all 3 parts together, or however many rows or cells that you selected. The only problem with this is if you need spaces in between, you really don't have that option because you're just selecting that whole string. But it's great when we talked about earlier of making a unique set of data, and you need to have 3 or 4 different things combined, and you're just looking for a code that makes it unique. It's easier to do it that way. Okay? Is that what you're looking? That's what you're talking about, Matt?
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. All right, so we're going to move on to some of the other things here. And we're going to send this sheet out at the end of the class as well. But in here, we have our count formula, sums, averages, VLOOKUPs, HLOOKUPs, index matches, and then kind of like a bigger overall exercise in the end. But inside of count, I know we talked about counts. Counts are great when you need to know how much cells are actually filled with content. But if you want to know how many cells are blank, or not blank, excuse me, you would use a count A. It's just a function there, so highlighting through there. A count if, like if you want to know how many times does the word Atlanta fall in your warehouse list, or dog, cat food, however you want to do it, you can say count if and only if, basically. in this range of cells does that actually come out. But the countif S is the one that I really like, is because you can use this formula to count multiple ranges of criteria. So if I want to know how many times the word dog shows up in column D, and I want to know how many times the word dog cat food pops up in column E, but only if dog is here and dog cat food is here, it'll tell me that number. Now the great thing about counts and sums and averages, they're basically the same formula with just a different heading. So for example, and I'll go back to the board on this one and we'll walk through a little bit on that.
So you're saying 3 choices to do the same thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, for example, and for this one, we're going to use reference boxes that I have set up over here just to make it easier for us to use. Because the great thing about reference boxes is that I can change just one cell and it'll give me the outcome of something different instead of having to retype the formula over and over and over. Just have to look up towards the reference. Okay. So first thing is, and we're going to just talk about the count if S, because if you can do the if S portion of it, you can do all the rest of the portion. Just take the if S part off. So on a count if S, the S is just saying multiple criteria. Okay, the if is if and only if. So if and only if for multiple criteria. That's what this piece is in layman's terms. So if I wanted to count if, the first thing it's going to ask me to do is for what do you want me to count? Where can I find where you want me to count? So if we wanted to count how many times the word dog pops up, we would need column B. So we would go B1 to B6. The next thing it's going to ask me for is the criteria. Okay. So instead of typing the word dog in here, we're going to use the reference cell of G2. And we're just going to type dog in here. Okay. So in my formula, I'm just going to type G2. And I'm actually going to lock this cell down by putting the dollar signs in there. So we're going to pause real quick and talk about what that dollar sign means. That dollar sign is telling Excel, if I drag this formula anywhere or copy and paste it anywhere on my sheet, always leave this locked in column G. If I put a dollar sign in front of the row number, always lock down the column number. Because you know, if you have something in Excel and you copy and paste it, the formula will move along with it. The dollar sign tells Excel, no matter where I copy it, leave this alone, either the column or the row number. You can cycle through the dollar signs by hitting F4 while you're typing. Okay. Now, the count if S said, hey, count this criteria, B1 through B6, every time it says dog. Okay. And then I want you to go look at C1 through C6 and give me every time it says food, which is, let's put it in G4. Okay, we'll just type food over here in our reference box. Okay, so what is Excel going to do? The answer for this is going to say, okay, I'm going to go to B1 through B6, and I'm going to find the word dog. Okay, found it here, and I found it here. So I got a yes, no, yes, no, and no. Okay, then the next thing we ask you to do is go to column C and find the word food. from our reference cell that we have here. Okay? So, all right, I found food here. Here. This is not food. This is food. And this is not food. So then Excel is going to say, okay, I got a yes here, a yes here. I'm going to count it. 1. I got a no here and a yes here. That's a 0. Yes, no, 0. No, yes, 0. No, no, 0. So my answer is 1, because it only found one instance where there was dog and food. Okay? Now, like I said, these formulas are basically repetitive. So I'm going to take the word count out, open this up a bit. And this time, I'm going to use sum if s. In a sum if s, it flips a little bit versus a sum if. Sum if s, the first thing it's going to ask you to do is, what do you want me to sum? What's the range of the cells that you want me to sum? In this case, we want to sum the cells up. Okay? So that's in cell in a reference D1 through D6. And then everything else is the same. What do you want me to sum? Well, go look in the B6, tell me where you find dog. Then go look in the C and then tell me where you find food. Okay? But this is the only thing that changed. Is what you want it to sum. So it's going to do the same calculation. It's going to say, yes, yes, 7,000. No, yes, no, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, all the way down, because none of this matches the criteria you asked it to do. So the answer is 7,000. Okay? Now, let's make Excel work a little bit. We're going to change the word supply to food. Okay? I'm going to change the word sum to average. So now, same thing. Where do you want me to, what values do you want me to average? I want you to average D1 through D6 only if you find dog within D1 and D6. And then when you look at the C, you find food. So Excel goes again. It says, okay, here's yes, yes. Cat food, no. Dog food, now I got another yes here. Bird food, no, no, no. So now it's going to take the 5,000 and the 7,000 and average it, which would give you 6,000. We did 3 formulas by changing 2 things. Same formula, just by changing the heading, and we didn't even have to change the order of it. Okay? So that is sums in sums if. And we'll walk through it on the computer one more time as well. How are we doing on time? Good?
Okay.
Any more questions? Anyone want to talk to me today? Thanks, Matt, for talking to me today. Appreciate it. Nobody else wants to talk to me. All right, so let's talk about this in just the COUNTIF again. So as you can see, like I said, I'm going to send this out again, but we answered all these questions by just using this. We had a count where it's counting how many cells we have. Scroll down, we have 10 cells that actually have something in it, right? Okay. Well, I'm sorry, 10 cells that actually have a number in it. Okay. Count A is saying, hey, there's 11 cells, and you can also look at the bottom here when I highlighted it. Here's my 11. My count if, we use the reference cell that said, how many times do you find the word shirts in my warehouse listing? 1, 2, and 3. Now this is a fun one. Inside a count if, sum if, average if, you can also have it count, sum, or average only the cells that are above, below, or equal to what you want it to be. So in this count if, we'll show the formula here. Let me make this a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. In this count if formula, I said count if cells G16 through G27, which is right here, only count it if it's above 906. So what Excel did was says, okay, here's a yes, 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 no, no, yes, 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 no, and no, which means it has 8 yeses. So it gave me 8. But the way this formula is set up is you told it where to go count it, and then you put quotations and you want it to be equal than, less than, or greater than. And like we did with the concatenate using that ampersand sign, we're going to combine it. So we want it greater than the number that's inside cell K12. Okay, this is very useful when you're trying to figure out, say you're doing some sales reporting and you want to know who are your top salesmen, or if you had an incentive program going on and you want to say, okay, I only want the people, tell me how many people who sold more than 1,000 items. Or if you're doing variance explanations, you want to see how many accounts do I have that the variance is over 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 or whatever threshold you decide to use. This is a very useful form. Okay. Same thing with average if. If you were to use this in the average if, and he says, give me the average sales of only those that sold more than 1,000, because the lower sales are throwing my averages off. This is a good way to break that apart. Okay. Now, if you look at that formula and you look at this formula, when we go to the sum formula, remember, it's the exact same. The only thing different is that we told it what to sum. But it still did the same exact thing. Same thing with averages. Okay. Same exact formula. Only thing we changed was the word, and if we needed, if the values to sum or not. Okay. And again, Lauren is going to send this template out when we leave the meeting today. Okay. So let's talk about lookups. And someone please stop me if I'm moving too fast. Okay. Okay. Now lookups. Why are lookups important? Why do we need lookups? Well, lookups is important when we're trying to find a singular answer to a question. But when you combine lookups into multiple rows or multiple columns, or even in models, VLOOKUPs are very powerful to use. You can use VLOOKUPs, HLOOKUPs, index matches, and index match matches. And it's offset formulas. There's a lot of different ways to get the answer you're looking for. Right now, we're just going to talk about VLOOKUPs and how we actually get them. A VLOOKUP is a vertical lookup. What that means is it's going to look within a column and vertically look for the information you want to find. Okay? So if I wanted to know what was the total sales inside of a list, first off, let's back up. VLOOKUPs, HLOOKUPs, index matches, it only looks up on a unique data set. So your data set that you're asking it to find has to be a unique list. Okay? Which means if I had 1653 in cell 2 and I had 1653 in cell 5, in row 5, it would only find the first one and stop and give you whatever column you asked it to give. It will totally ignore the second one. So before you do VLOOKUPs off a certain list, make sure you do a remove duplicates or use conditional formatting any way you need to find if there's duplicates in this data set. If there is, it's only going to return back the first one. Okay? So it's very important that when you do your lookups, you're doing it off a unique data set, which is one of the reasons why, like at the beginning, you can do that concatenate or concat formula to give you that unique code to make sure that you don't have duplicates. Okay? So in the VLOOKUP, if we wanted to know, and I'm gonna just eliminate this stuff because this will just throw it off. Okay? If we wanted to know the sales for store 1653, and we're going to use our reference sales again. We're going to use, let's go 1627. Okay? So this is our reference cell for our VLOOKUP. We would type VLOOKUP. And the first thing the VLOOKUP is going to ask us for is, what do we want to look up? We're going to use our reference cell of G2. Okay? And then it's going to say, where can I find G2? Now, with a VLOOKUP, you have to give it a box because a VLOOKUP reads left to right. It does not go right to left. It only goes left to right, top to bottom. So it needs a box. It needs a parameter for it to work. So the far left column has to be where it can find what it's looking for. So if you told it to find 1627, your far left column has to have 1627 somewhere into it. Okay? So what we're going to do is just make a box here. And you can have the words in here, it doesn't matter. We're going to make a box of what we need. So now the VLOOKUP knows that I can't go outside this box to find what you're looking for or to give you the answer on what you're looking for. Okay? So we're going to use this box, and our box is separated by A1 to D6. Okay? Also very important, make sure when you do a VLOOKUP, if you plan on using it, dragging it down, copying it over, that you lock this down by using these dollar signs. Okay? Which can be done by hitting F4. Comma. Now, you told it what to look for, you told it where to find it. Then you have to tell it, okay, what do you want me to return? In what column? So inside of this box, what column that correlates to this, where I find it, okay? What column away from this box, how much is it? So in my box, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. It starts with the left. The far left column is column number 1. And then so on and so forth, 2, 3, and 4. If I wanted to return the values of sales, okay, I would have to tell the VLOOKUP to go 4 spaces. Now, the next question it's going to ask you is true or false, which really means, do you want the exact match or the approximate match? I have never used approximate match in my career. That approximate match is mostly used for statistics and for statistical reporting, and I have never used it in my career, and I don't think any of you would probably ever use it. Okay? So you're going to put the word false, which tells it to give it an exact match. So what the VLOOKUP does is going to say, okay, what's in G2? 1627. It's going to vertically look up and find 1627. Then it's going to go, all right, I'm inside my box. I need to go 4 spaces to the right. So I found 1627, and I'm gonna go 1 space, 2 space, 3 space, 4. And then I want exactly what I found. So I'm gonna return 5,000. Okay? That's what a VLOOKUP does. Now, I erased the words in here, but if I had the same thing, and then y'all just bear with me in terms of, I know this is not a real thing, but say that 1627 only sold dog food. This one sold cat food. And this sold dog food. This one sold burger food. Or whatever it is. Okay? If I was to change this 4 into 3, it would find 1627 and count 1, 2, 3, and return the word dog. So VLOOKUP can be used for not only numbers, but also as well as text. So that's a VLOOKUP. The VLOOKUP, again, is vertical lookup. The other one is HLOOKUP. An HLOOKUP does the exact same thing. You tell it what to find, you tell it where to find it, but instead of giving it the column number, you tell it how many rows to go down. So for example, if I have my HLOOKUP, and I got A1 to B6, and I wanted to know with my box here, I wanted to find the sub, okay? So I'm going to change this to sub. So what the HLOOKUP is going to do is find the first row of my box, my topmost row of my box. And it's going to say no, no, sub, yes. This is the one I want. And if I told it to go down 3 rows, it's going to count 1, 2, 3, and it's going to return the word cat. Because this time it horizontally looked up what I wanted, and then I told it how many rows to go down, which was 1, 2, 3 to get a cat. Okay? Same concept, it's just one looks up a vertical column, and the HLOOKUP looks at horizontal row. So it does the exact same thing, exact same format. You're just looking at columns versus rows or rows versus columns. Okay? Any questions?
Yeah, so Drew, I think you mentioned this in one of the first sessions, but can you speak to the importance of hidden columns and rows?
Yes, thank you for that. Now, a lot of times we get files from other people, and in those other people, they give us stuff and they hide rows. And hidden rows are one of my biggest pet peeves when you're dealing with some of this stuff, because what happens is they only want to see the information that helps them out, right? So what they'll do is they'll hide columns, and we do it too. We hide columns. Best practice, instead of hiding columns, use combined columns. So grouping them or ungrouping them, and I'll show you in just a second what that means. But what happens is you got column A, B, and all of a sudden this is column F and G, because they hid all of these columns in between. So when you do a VLOOKUP, you're thinking it's 1, 2, 3. Well, it's actually not 1, 2, 3. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? To get you, this is what you're looking for. So it can actually throw you off when you're doing your VLOOKUP if there's hidden columns. Now, to get around hidden columns, I'm talking about best practices. Instead of using hidden columns, I'm sure your little shortcut to combine everything instead of hiding them, which will tell the next user, if anybody else is using this, on what they need to do. So To hide columns, we just select a column, scroll over, right click, hit hide, it's gone, right? But instead of doing that, what we're going to do is actually highlight the columns that we don't want to see. We're going to go to data and then group, okay? This, and this probably looks familiar to some of you, this little box up here is going to group it. And now every time I hit this plus or minus box, plus to show me more, minus to show me less. So now I've grouped the boxes versus hidden them. I still don't see them. They're still out of my way, but the next person or next person can come and easily just open and close to see if there's data there. And it actually gives them a signal that there's more columns than what they see. Okay? Now, shortcut for that. It's a little, and we'll send out the Excel, along with this, the other Excel that has a list of shortcuts that you can print out and put next to your computer. If you hit Shift and when you highlight the columns you want, and hit Shift, Alt, and to the left, it ungroups. Shift Alt to the right, it groups it back. And you don't have to use the mouse at all. So if you just want to group this set of rows, you can highlight and do the same thing. Shift Alt left, and a little box comes up and says, do you want to ungroup the rows or the columns? I want to ungroup the columns. Same way. Shift Alt to the right, and it'll group the columns for you. Good question. All right. So we have about 8-9 minutes left. Do we have any more questions before we try to get into something else? None. Okay. So let's go to index matching. I'm not going to do this on the board. I'm just going to do it here and talk about some of the benefits and disadvantages versus VLOOKUPs in using index match. Okay. An index match is really a compound formula. It's taking an index formula and embedding a match formula in there in order to give you the row or the column that you're looking for, so that you won't have to count 1, 2, 3, 4 columns or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows or whatever it may be using VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs. You actually select the ones that you want. In a VLOOKUP, if you get a file where the heading is always the same, but yet somebody inserts a column in between it, which was once column 3 is now column 4, which throws your whole thing off. But if you had a index match in your file, when someone inserts a column, it won't move, it won't throw off your whole formula, it'll actually move with your formula. For example, we have an index match formula here where we say we want to look up store 615 and find the sales dollars for April. To do that, we would do index match. Now, as you can see, when I did my index, it's asking me for a reference, a row number, a column number, and an area number. Instead of me actually physically giving it the number, I'm going to let it figure it out itself by using a match formula. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do is tell it what do I want it to return. In our example here, we want to return April. So I'm going to highlight April, and I'm going to hit F4 because I want to lock that down. Okay? Comma. Now it's asking me for the row number. I can go and find the row number myself, say, hey, 615, that's 1, 2, 3 rows down. But instead, I'm going to use a match formula so that it figures it out for me. I'm going to type the word match. And then I said my lookup value I want to find is my 615, my reference. Hit F4, lock that down. Then I'm going to give it, where can I find this reference cell? Here. Now, very important that my lookup reference is in the same, has the same amount of rows in it as my index reference. So you see my reference for my index was 25 to 31. I need to make sure my lookup for my match is also 25 to 31, okay? Because what a match formula does, it actually starts to count from the top or left most and counts how many away it is from the top bar to the left of it. So I'm gonna hit comma again, and then my match type is asking me, do I want less than, an exact match, or greater than? We want an exact match. Close parentheses. Then I don't need to give it a column number because I already selected the column that I wanted. That's why I'm not going to answer this question from Excel. I'm just going to close parentheses in the end of my formula. So what did Excel just do? Excel just said, okay, you told me what to answer. So here's where I'm going to find the answer. You wanted me to go find 1615. Okay, found that. Now, this is another tips and tricks thing we talked about in previous classes. But if you have a compound formula, or if you have anything that's referencing a cell, you can actually highlight a certain portion of your formula and hit F9. F9 is a calculate function in Excel. So if you ever turn your calcs off because you have a big file that you're working in, but you need it to calculate, just hit F9 and it'll start the calculation process. But inside what we just did here, we did a mini calc where we calculated what the match was going to return. So again, I'm going to highlight the match formula, hit F9, and you see it gave me 3. That 3 is in reference to this, where it says, all right, I gave it a box, and then the match counted how many rows down it was in that box. So it's 1, 2, 3. Okay. So the match gave me 3, which answers the formula, the index formula's question of what do you want me to return? I want you to return the third thing you find within this range of cells, which is 91. 1, 2, and 3. All right. The good thing about an index match is that you don't have to do it from left to right. It also works right to left. So if you have something where it's in the middle of your page, but you want to find something on the left-hand side, you can do it that way, right and left, and not because you're actually selecting the actual column you want in order to give you the cell. And like I said earlier, it's great because I can insert as many rows as I want and my answer doesn't change because it's locked to that particular range of cells. Okay? And we're going to skip over because we only got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to finish off with tips and tricks. Again, just a little shortcut here. If I have a range of cells, I can hit Alt and the little plus equal sign here, and it'll put an auto sum right here. So if I need a quick way to auto sum something, that's one way to do it. And this one is also a good favorite of mine. If you have a file, a big file, or just a small file, whatever it is, and you want to know what cells actually have a formula in it versus a hard-coded number, you hit Control and the little squiggly at the top portion of your keyboard, and it'll break out every cell that has a formula in it and show you what that formula is for that cell. To bring it back to regular numbers, you just hit Control and squiggly, and it brings it back to your normal setting. Okay? Again, those are some of the things that's going to be in that file that she's going to send down. So, hope you guys enjoyed the wrap up. Just wanted to go through a quick, I know it was like a really fast how we went through some things, but this was just a quick wrap up of the first 3 classes we did. We got some good stuff planned in the next couple months. Lauren's going to talk more about that later. We're going to get into some more advanced things. We're going to get into pivot tables. We're going to get into some minor macro stuff. We're going to get into some more advanced Excel formulas going forward. Okay? So if you have any questions, please send them over to Lauren. If you have any questions about something you're working on, reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you. All right? Thank you very much for your time, and I'll hand this back over to Lauren.
Thanks for everybody who joined today. Hope you found it helpful. Like Drew said, we will be sending out the invite for the next class. We do have some things planned, so keep your eyes open for it, and we hope you join again. Have a great day.